Hi, everyone. We're here with Caty Dearing, and she's going to talk to us and give us some tips about studying and preparing for the Reading Specialist Exam. And in Texas, I believe that it's actually something that can count for more than one certification, but we won't get into all that. But just kind of tell us just very brief intro and then kind of about your process for studying.
Sure. Well, thank you for asking me to do this. Is exciting. So my name is Caty Dearing, like Dr. Semingson said, and I just finished my 9th year in the classroom teaching 11th grade English, and I'm actually I started a new job last week that I'm excited about with instructional coaching and secondary literacy for Region 11. So I'm pretty psyched about that. So I took my reading specialist exam May, and I was done with my coursework that same week. So I was able to finish my last practicum class where we're doing a lot of preparation for the reading specialist exam, and I took that test probably 2 weeks after I finished that course. So with it being an 18-month program, I really tried to think in mind the whole time. When I began, knowing that I'm a secondary educator, I don't really have a whole lot of background with phonics, with, I have dyslexic students as a high school instructor, but really not to the level that a reading specialist needs to. So there were a lot of those things that I knew I would need to pay attention, kind of extra, just a little bit more than normal. So as I was taking courses, usually things like the early literacy course, when I tackled some of those more difficult topics, and if the course were a little more difficult than normal for me, I would really try to save those things so that I could use study materials when it got closer to the time.
That's great. I like how you kind of self-assess your knowledge along the way.
Well, and I think really important because that reading specialist test, there's a lot of questions, and just with the nerves, we, especially teachers, we tend to model what our students feel. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to be successful. And so I didn't want to have to take over and over and over. I really wanted to go in and feel very confident and to do good. And in doing that, I'm becoming a better teacher and able to work with some of my struggling high school levels. So that was nice. As far as other things that I did to prep, mainly the Practicum 3 class, which is the last 15-week course, we're doing a lot of prep work there. So with various quizzes as checkpoints throughout the way, we would get these PDFs full of great information, a lot of which we'd covered, but it was in a more condensed and that was easier to study. So I saved all of those things as we did it, and as with every quiz, every practice, I would go through, and instead of just retaking to try to make it, I would really go and type out those questions and examine why I missed them, which really, really helped me because I was able to, call back on those while I was testing and remember I went over that several times. So that was another really beneficial thing that I did.
Oh, that's great. I forgot to add Dr. Kathryn Pole, our program coordinator, is on this conference call. And Dr. Pole, do you want to add anything?
As I was listening to Caty speak, I was thinking about, sometimes we run into students who say, well, I'm only going to be teaching in a primary grade, and so I don't really need to know things for higher levels. And Caty just explained that she taught 11th grade, and so to her, the lower grades weren't as important to her professionally, but in this program, you're being certified to be a literacy specialist all across the spectrum from you could work in a pre-K all the way through 12. So the idea that there are things that don't necessarily apply to you at this time doesn't really have any bearing on what you need to study for the exam, because the test will cover everything.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you named some resources, you said, especially like the tutorials and the practicum and identifying kind of your areas where you felt like you needed to really hone in on a little more. But what were some of the best resources you used? And then was there anything else you want to mention about what you got out of the courses?
Absolutely. So in addition to the things that I already mentioned with materials provided kind of throughout, one thing that was really helpful, and this might be kind of a non-prep way, but when we first began our 18-month program within our cohort group of teachers, someone made a Facebook group, and we were able to go in and just as with every course, we were taking the same classes and talking about things that we struggled with and things that we loved. And so when it got closer and closer, there were several teachers that would make flashcards on Quizlet, and then they would share the deck out with the rest of us, which was helpful. I know I had one particular classmate, she made probably 5 decks of flashcards, and I would sit there during my lunch break while we were eating and just kind of through terms and study that way in a 5-minute, here 10-minute kind of thing. So that was really, really helpful too. And you don't really expect something like that with an online program to really be able to connect. And so I was really excited to make those intentional connections because
that's really helpful. Did you study on your phone? Did you use
it?
Cool. I love learning on my phone like I'm an addict.
Oh, absolutely. The technology that we have available to us now, especially I'm, have a job and I'm a working mom. I have a 5-year-old daughter, husband who's also in school PR. And so as far as having time really dig in and study while I'm also taking classes, that time is very finite. So any opportunity, if I'm giving my daughter a bath, I can be scrolling through terms
right.
as much as I can.
Yeah. Dr. Pole, do you have any ideas or kind of thoughts?
No, but I think that, Katy making the point that, a lot of people in our programs are busy. They have multiple roles. They have a job and they're mothers and they have a spouse and, just all of those things that make a, rounded person with lots of things going on. I think it's important to think about, mobile tools are important. We can use those, stuck at a traffic jam, you can review a little bit, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do that.
Yeah, exactly. Those are great ideas. I love the Quizlet idea too. And, I'm trying to make more YouTube videos because those are sometimes we all learn in different ways. Some people
YouTube videos, podcasts are also really great. And kind of a niche that I don't feel like was as available just mainstream wise as far as, the specific topics that we would need. I would have loved to send us something in the car. That would have been a really helpful tool. But something that I think is important is it was never an option whether or not I was going to take the reading specialist exam. To me, even though I'm an 11th and 12th grade instructor, and my district at the time, we didn't have reading specialists at the high school level, I think it's important for us to be able to feel like we have some kind of mastery over literacy from early development way on, because regardless of whether I'm teaching kindergarten or I'm teaching 12th grade, ours are not going to be leveled in that way. So knowing where they're going, the kind of roads that they will face in the future, possibly if we don't get the intervention that they need, or even with a 7-year-old student who's on a 5th grade reading level. It's important to have that broad spectrum. And so for me, even if I never am actually, a reading specialist job, it's something that was very, very important to me to feel like I was qualified, capable to help my students no matter what they were struggling with.
Right. Or if your career takes you into a coach position.
Yes.
At the district office or region service center, you're prepared, you're confident that you can work with teachers at all levels.
Absolutely. Again, 11th and 12th grade teacher, and tomorrow I'm actually giving a training 4th grade teachers, which is not something that, before this course I would have ever thought that I would do. I feel confident and I feel like I earned my reading certification. I feel very qualified.
You're totally next.
Oh yeah.
Well, good. Do you have any other tips? We'll kind of wrap up, but what other tips do you have maybe for preparing for the exam and just kind of general pointers?
Well, I think this is a pointer for the exam and just kind of for the program in general is really being able to self-assess and to be very proactive in everything that you do, because I think a lot of times we mimic what our students do, where we think, I need to turn this in so I can get it back, so that I can finish and I can move forward. And this is a program that's preparing us to really be experts in our field. And it's important to think of every class in that way of I'm gaining valuable skill, valuable information that's going to help me be a better teacher tomorrow.
Right.
And so that, being able to look and say, what was easy for me? What was a difficulty for me? I didn't have to study a lot of the adolescent literacy stuff because that's the world that I live in. I feel very comfortable with, but being able to look through and think through some of this with phonics and with phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, things like that were not my strengths going into this program. So I was really proactive in thinking of why I struggled in certain areas and trying to fill those gaps, not right there at the last minute, just kind of as I went. I also think this might be silly, but I took my test quickly after I finished my practicum.
Yeah.
I didn't wait. So I wanted that material to be really, really fresh. And so that's definitely advice that I would anybody is to schedule, even if you're not sure, schedule the test, make it a priority. And you'll do much better than you think. I didn't miss as many questions as I thought I did. So
good.
Yeah, I think that's such important advice. We have some people who think that there's an advantage to waiting, but from my perspective, it's much better to take it while it's all fresh and new, and you're much more likely to be successful if it's right there at the top of your head,
Yeah, I agree too. We like that tip you just gave. Well, good. I think we'll wrap up. Dr. Pole, do you want to add anything else?
I really appreciate that Katy took the time to help us make this video. I think it's going to be really helpful for students that are coming behind her. I hope everyone gets a lot out of it.
Yeah, I like your big picture kind of approach. Studying along the way is what I heard you say.
Thank you so much for doing it. It was great. I hope it's helpful.
And best wishes to you on your new job, Katy.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Okay, cool. I'll stop recording.